The human shuttlecraft descended through Velthara's peaceful atmosphere like a metal bird. Commander Bora Jung sat in the pilot's seat, looking down at the beautiful world below. Rolling green hills stretched to the horizon, dotted with cities that looked like gardens. It was nothing like Earth. "Beautiful planet," said Dr. Wu Jinhan, the mission's xenobiologist. He was checking his medical scanner readings. "Perfect temperature, clean atmosphere, low radiation. These people won the planetary lottery." Bora nodded. Velthara was exactly the kind of world that most species called paradise. Stable weather, abundant food, no natural disasters. It was the sort of place where intelligent life could develop without ever learning to fight for survival. The shuttle landed in a field near the capital city. Through the windows, they could see crowds of Veltharians gathering at a respectful distance. The aliens were tall and slender, with 6 arms and large, gentle eyes. Their movements were graceful and unhurried. Everything about them spoke of a peaceful species that had never known war. Ambassador Kethvar approached the shuttle with a small delegation. He moved slowly, partly from natural caution and partly from the injuries he had sustained during the orbital bombardment. When the shuttle door opened, he got his first look at the beings who had saved his world. The humans were smaller than he had expected, but they moved with controlled power. Their eyes were sharp and alert, constantly scanning their surroundings for threats. They wore simple uniforms, but every piece of equipment they carried looked like it had been designed for war. Commander Jung stepped forward and bowed respectfully. She had studied Veltharian customs during the flight down. "Ambassador Kethvar," she said through her translation device, "I am Commander Bora Jung of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. On behalf of the human people, I bring greetings and an offer of friendship." Kethvar returned the bow, though his was deeper and more elaborate. "Commander Jung, words cannot express our gratitude. Your people saved our entire civilization. How can we ever repay such a debt?" "There is no debt," Bora replied simply. "You asked for help, we gave it. That is what civilized beings do for each other." Dr. Han was running passive scans of the Veltharians with his medical equipment. The readings made him frown. These beings were even more fragile than the preliminary data had suggested. Their bones were hollow like bird bones. Their muscle density was extremely low. They were perfectly adapted for their peaceful world, but they would be helpless anywhere else. "Commander," Dr. Han said quietly, "we need to be very careful about physical contact. Their biology is much more delicate than ours." Elder Velthara, the senior leader of the Planetary Council, approached with obvious reverence. She had lived for over 300 years and had never seen anything like the space battle that had saved her world. "Honored humans," she said, "your ships fought with such power, such precision. We have never seen anything like it. What manner of beings are you?" Dr. Han exchanged glances with Commander Jung. This was the question they had been dreading and expecting in equal measure. "We are from a world called Earth," Bora explained. "It is different from Velthara." "May I ask how different?" Elder Velthara inquired politely. Dr. Han activated his portable holoprojector. An image of Earth appeared in the air between them, a blue and white marble spinning in space. "This is our homeworld," he said. The Veltharians leaned closer to examine the image. It looked peaceful enough from space, much like their own world. "It appears quite beautiful," Kethvar observed. "Yes," Dr. Han agreed, "from a distance. But let me show you what it's really like on the surface." The image changed to show Earth's surface conditions. The Veltharians gasped as they saw violent storms that could level cities, earthquakes that split the ground apart, volcanoes that spewed liquid rock into the sky. "Your world tries to kill you?" Elder Velthara asked in horror. "Constantly," Dr. Han replied. "Earth has the strongest gravity of any inhabited planet in the galaxy. Our atmosphere is poisonous to most species. Our sun bombards the surface with deadly radiation. The weather changes violently and without warning. The ground itself moves and shakes." The Veltharians stared at the images in shock. They could not imagine how anything could survive on such a nightmare world, let alone build a civilization. "But that's not the worst part," Dr. Han continued. "Earth is also home to some of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy." The hologram showed images of Earth's wildlife: lions hunting in packs, sharks patrolling the oceans, bears that could tear apart trees with their claws, snakes with venom that could kill in minutes. "These creatures share your world with you?" Kethvar asked weakly. "Some of them," Bora said. Humans learned to survive by becoming better predators than anything else on Earth. We had to be faster, stronger, and smarter than creatures designed by evolution to kill us. Elder Velthera was examining the biological data that Dr. Han's scanners had collected. The readings were almost impossible to believe. Your bone density is 3 times greater than ours, she said in amazement. Your muscle fibers are designed for explosive strength. Your reflexes are faster than our measuring equipment can accurately record. That's what you need to survive on Earth, Dr. Han explained. Humans who weren't strong enough or fast enough died before they could have children. But you're also highly intelligent, Elder Velthera continued, studying the scans. Your brain structure shows remarkable development in areas related to cooperation and abstract thinking. Intelligence wasn't enough, Bora said. Individual humans are not the strongest or fastest creatures on Earth. We survived by working together, by taking care of each other, by never leaving anyone behind. This was beginning to make sense to the Veltharians. The humans fought like apex predators, but they protected each other like a peaceful species. They were the product of a world that demanded both strength and cooperation. Your planet sounds like what our scientists call a death world, Kethavar said quietly. That's exactly what it is, Dr. Han confirmed. According to galactic classification standards, Earth is a Class 12 hazardous world. Most species consider it uninhabitable. The Veltharians were quiet for a long moment. They were beginning to understand what had really happened during the battle in orbit. The Vorthak had thought they were fighting another military fleet. They had actually been fighting creatures from a planet that made war look like a peaceful hobby. How many of you are there? Elder Velthara asked. About 8 billion on Earth, Bora replied. Maybe another billion scattered across our colonies. The number was staggering. 9 billion apex predators with advanced technology and a protective instinct toward peaceful species. The galaxy had just discovered that it was no longer ruled by the strong preying on the weak. What do you want from us? Kethavar asked. It was the question that every species asked when they encountered something more powerful than themselves. Nothing, Bora said simply. We would like to learn about your culture, perhaps trade knowledge and art, but we want nothing from you except friendship. You saved our entire civilization and ask for nothing in return? Elder Velthara found this difficult to believe. We didn't save you for a reward, Bora explained. We saved you because it was the right thing to do. Because you asked for help and we had the power to give it. Dr. Han was still studying his scanner readings. The biological differences between humans and Veltharians were even more extreme than he had thought. In terms of physical capability, a single human could probably fight dozens of Veltharians. But the humans had traveled across the galaxy to protect them. There is one thing we would like to ask, Bora said carefully. The Veltharians tensed slightly. Here it came. The price for their salvation. We would like permission to establish a small base in your outer system. Nothing on your planet itself. Just a station where human ships can stop for supplies when they're patrolling this region. Patrolling? Kerthvar asked. The Vorthak were not the only predator species in the galaxy, Bora explained. There are others who prey on peaceful worlds. We would like to make sure that what happened here never happens again, to anyone. Elder Velthera felt tears forming in her large eyes. These terrifying apex predators wanted to become guardians. They wanted to use their power to protect others rather than conquer them. Of course, she said. You may build whatever you need. Our world is yours to defend. Not ours, Bora corrected gently. Yours. We are just here to help you keep it. As the sun set over Velthara, the human delegation shared a meal with their hosts. The Veltharians asked endless questions about Earth and human culture. The humans, in turn, learned about Veltharian art and philosophy. It was the beginning of something new in galactic history. For the first time, a species with the power to conquer had chosen to protect instead. The strong had decided to serve the weak rather than rule them. Ambassador Kethvar looked up at the stars that night, where human ships stood guard over his world. Tomorrow, he would send a message to every peaceful species in the galaxy. The message would be simple. Help had arrived. The Deathworlders had come and they were on the side of peace. The first human weapons to fire were unlike anything the Vorthak had ever faced. Captain Su Young Park's fighter squadron launched from the carrier UES Indomitable Spirit like angry hornets. The small craft moved at speeds that defied logic, pulling maneuvers that should have turned their pilots into paste against the bulkheads. But human pilots were different. They had trained on Earth. where the gravity was stronger than most inhabited worlds. They had learned to fly in Earth's violent atmosphere, where storms could tear apart mountains. What seemed impossible to other species was just another day at the office for humans. Young Jun Kim, the weapons specialist aboard the Terra's Wrath, watched his targeting computers lock onto the Vorthak flagship. The massive enemy ship was 3 times the size of his vessel, covered in thick armor plating that could probably withstand anything in the galactic arsenal. Probably. "Admiral," Young Jun reported, "we have target lock on the enemy flagship. Kinetic kill vehicles loaded and ready." Admiral So-Jin Kim nodded. "Fire." The Terra's Wrath launched a spread of missiles that accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. They were not explosive warheads. They were solid chunks of tungsten and titanium designed to punch through armor using nothing but speed and mass. Most galactic civilizations had abandoned kinetic weapons centuries ago as too primitive. Humans had perfected them. The first missile struck the Vorthak flagship's forward shields. The energy barrier, designed to stop plasma beams and particle weapons, offered no resistance to a physical object moving at relativistic speeds. The missile punched through the shield like it was not there and struck the ship's hull. The impact released energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. Armor plating that had withstood decades of combat was simply vaporized. The missile continued through 17 decks before finally stopping in the ship's power core. War General Thexmore was thrown to the deck as his flagship shuddered under the impact. Emergency lights flashed as damage reports flooded in. His ship had lost main power and was drifting helplessly. "What was that?" he roared at his tactical officer. "Some kind of kinetic projectile, War General. Our computers show impact velocity at approximately 30% light speed." Thexmore stared at the readings. 30% light speed? That was impossible. The energy requirements alone would drain the power core of a capital ship. These humans had launched dozens of such weapons as if they cost nothing. "Return fire. All ships concentrate on the lead vessel." The Vorthak fleet opened up with everything they had. Energy beams and plasma cannons filled space with deadly light. The combined firepower of 200 warships focused on the Terra's Wrath. The human flagship did not try to avoid the barrage. Instead, Admiral Kim ordered her ship directly into the storm of weapons fire. Her shields flared as they absorbed the incoming energy, but they held. Human shield technology was based on principles that the galactic community considered too dangerous to use. "Shield status?" Admiral Kim asked calmly. "Down to 60%, Admiral," reported her chief engineer. "But holding steady." "Good, return fire." Full spread. The Terra's Wrath unleashed its full arsenal. Kinetic kill vehicles, plasma lance batteries, nuclear-tipped torpedoes, and something new that made the Vorthak sensors scream warnings they had never heard before. The humans had weaponized gravity itself. Captain Haiwan, Lee watched from her ship as gravitational anomalies tore through the Vorthak formation. Enemy vessels that had survived hundreds of battles were crushed like empty cans as space-time itself twisted around them. It was technology that most species considered too dangerous to research, let alone deploy. Humans had different opinions about what was too dangerous. "This is insane," whispered the Vorthak sensor operator as he watched. Human ships perform maneuvers that violated several laws of physics. They're flying their ships like atmospheric fighters. The G-forces alone should kill their crews. War General Thexmore was beginning to understand that he was not fighting a normal military engagement. These humans fought like no species he had ever encountered. They took risks that bordered on suicide, then somehow survived through skill and technology that seemed impossible. A human destroyer, the UES Phoenix Rising, took a direct hit from 3 Vorthak cruisers simultaneously. Its hull was breached in multiple places, atmosphere venting into space. Any normal crew would have retreated to make repairs. Captain Ji-Hai Choi ordered her ship to accelerate toward the enemy. "Captain," her first officer said carefully, "we have multiple hull breaches. Engineering recommends we withdraw for repairs." "Negative," Choi replied. "Seal the damaged sections and keep fighting. We're not done yet." The Phoenix Rising plowed into the center of the Vorthak formation, its weapons blazing. Even damaged and bleeding atmosphere, the human ship was more dangerous than most enemies at full strength. This was when the Vorthak began to understand what they were really fighting. These were not just another galactic military force. These were apex predators from a world that had tried to kill them every day of their existence. They had learned to fight by surviving on a planet that most species could not even visit safely. War General Thexmore watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy half his size. Human ships moved with deadly precision, their weapons striking with terrifying accuracy. When damaged, they became more aggressive, not less. When outnumbered, they fought harder, not smarter. But it was the way they protected each other that truly frightened him. When the destroyer UES Guardian took critical damage, 3 other human ships immediately moved to shield it from further attack. They risked their own destruction to save their comrades. The Vorthak fought for conquest and glory. The humans fought for each other. Captain Min-Ho Lee's ship, the Retribution, had taken heavy damage. His engines were failing, his weapon systems were offline, and his hull was cracked in multiple places. Any reasonable captain would have withdrawn from combat. Min-Ho was not feeling reasonable. "All hands prepare for ramming speed," he announced over the ship's intercom. "Sir?" his first officer asked in shock. "You heard me. Point us at their flagship and give me everything the engines have left." The Retribution turned toward the Vorthak command ship and accelerated. Even with damaged engines, the human vessel built up tremendous speed. War General Thexmore watched in disbelief as the enemy ship approached on what was clearly a collision course. "They're going to ram us," his tactical officer said in amazement. "They're actually going to ram us. Evasive maneuvers," Thexmore ordered, but the Vorthak flagship was too damaged to move quickly. The Retribution struck it amidships at full speed. The impact tore both ships apart in a flash of released energy that could be seen from the planet's surface. Captain Min-Ho Lee died with his ship, but he took the enemy flagship and its crew with him. The rest of the human fleet paused for exactly 30 seconds to honor their fallen comrades. Then they resumed the attack with renewed fury. Admiral Sojin Kim's voice echoed across all human ships. "They killed Min-Ho. Make them pay for it." The remaining Vorthak ships found themselves facing an enemy that had just become twice as dangerous. Human weapons fire intensified. Human ships took greater risks. The careful military engagement became a slaughter. War General Thexmore, now commanding from a heavy cruiser since his flagship was destroyed, finally understood the truth. He was not fighting soldiers. He was fighting something much more dangerous. He was fighting beings who would die before they let innocents be harmed. "All ships," he transmitted to his remaining vessels, "retreat to minimum safe distance. We need to reconsider our approach." But it was too late for retreat. The human fleet had tasted blood, and they were not in a forgiving mood. Fighter squadrons hunted down fleeing Vorthak ships like wolves chasing deer. Capital ships used their superior speed to cut off escape routes. Within 6 hours of the first shot being fired, the Vorthak invasion fleet was completely destroyed. Not a single ship escaped to carry word of the battle back to Vorthak territory. On Velthara, Ambassador Kethvar and his people watched the battle from their shelters. They saw lights flashing in space as weapons fired and ships exploded. They felt the ground shake as debris fell from orbit. When the fighting finally stopped, the human ships hung in space like silent guardians. The Vorthak fleet was gone, reduced to expanding clouds of metal and plasma. Kethvar received a communication from the human flagship. "Velthara, this is Admiral Kim. The hostile fleet has been neutralized. You are safe. We would like to send down a diplomatic team to meet with your leaders." For the first time in days, Kethvar allowed himself to hope. His people had been saved by strangers who asked for nothing in return, except the chance to help. The Vorthak invasion fleet hung in space like a dark cloud. 200 warships arranged themselves in attack formation around Velthara. Their hulls were black metal covered with weapon ports and armor plating. Each ship was the size of a small city. War General Thexmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds. He was a massive creature, 3 meters tall with thick armor plating covering his body. His race had evolved as apex predators, and it showed in every line of his body. 4 arms ended in clawed hands. His mouth was full of sharp teeth designed for tearing flesh. "Status report," Thexmore commanded. "All ships in position, War General," replied his tactical officer. "The planet has no significant defenses. We can begin bombardment immediately." Thexmore looked at the blue-green world below. It was beautiful, which made destroying it more satisfying. The Vorthak had learned long ago that beauty was weakness. Pretty things were meant to be broken. "Begin with the major cities," Thexmore ordered. "I want the population to understand what is happening before they die." The first wave of energy beams lanced down from orbit. They struck the largest Veltharian city, turning buildings to vapor and leaving massive craters where millions had lived moments before. The elegant flower-like structures that the Veltharians built were no match for military-grade plasma cannons. On the planet's surface, Ambassador Kethvar watched his people die. The communication center shook as nearby explosions sent shockwaves through the ground. His staff were crying, but they stayed at their posts. "Keep broadcasting the distress signal," Kethvar said. "Even if no one comes, someone should know what happened here." That was when sensors detected something impossible. Lieutenant Ju-Wan Kim materialized on the sensor screen of the cargo ship Indomitable. She was staring at readings that made no sense. "Captain," she called to Hyunwoo Park, "I'm detecting massive gravitational distortions. Something big is coming out of hyperspace." Captain Park looked at the display. The readings showed gravitational signatures unlike anything in the database. Whatever was approaching had engines more powerful than anything the galactic community had ever built. "How many ships?" Park asked. I can't tell, sir. The distortions are too large. It's like someone is ripping holes in space itself." The first human ship appeared between Velthara and its star. The UES Terra's Wrath dropped out of hyperspace in a flash of twisted light. The massive battleship was 2 kilometers long and bristled with weapons. Its dark hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Then another ship appeared. Then another. Within minutes, 57 human warships had arranged themselves in perfect formation between the Vorthak fleet and Velthara. They moved with mechanical precision, like parts of a single organism. On the Vorthak flagship, sensor operator Klithson stared at his screens in disbelief. "War General," he said nervously, "we have a problem." Thexmore turned to look at the main display. The newcomer ships were unlike anything in Vorthak databases. They were angular and predatory, covered with weapon systems that did not match any known technology. Their formations were too precise, their movements too coordinated. This was a military force that had trained for real war. "Who are they?" Thexmore demanded. "Unknown, sir. They're not broadcasting any identification signals. They just appeared." On the Terra's Wrath, Admiral So-Jin Kim studied the Vorthak fleet through her tactical displays. 200 ships was impressive, but she had seen bigger numbers in war games. What concerned her more was their positioning. They were arranged for maximum destruction, not military efficiency. These were not soldiers. They were destroyers. "Open a channel to the planet's surface," Admiral Kim ordered. Communication specialist A-Rin Yoon worked to establish contact with Velthara. The language barriers were significant, but human computers had been analyzing the Veltharian distress signal during the journey. They had learned enough to communicate basic concepts. "Velthara, this is Admiral Kim of the Terran Fleet," A-Rin transmitted. "We received your distress call. Please move your civilian population to minimum safe distance from military targets. We will handle the hostile fleet." On Velthara, Ambassador Kethvar stared at the translation that appeared on his screen. Terran Fleet? He had never heard of any species called Terrans, but they had come in response to the distress signal, and their ships looked extremely dangerous. "This is Ambassador Kethvar of Velthara," he replied. "We thank you for responding, but there are no military targets here. We have no weapons. We have no defenses." There was a pause in the transmission, then the alien voice came back. "Understood. Please take your people to underground shelters if you have them. This may get violent." Kethvar felt a chill of fear mixed with hope. These newcomers were clearly warriors, but they were here to help. He gave orders to begin emergency evacuations. War General Thexmore had heard enough. Unknown aliens were interfering with his operation, and that could not be allowed. He opened a general communication channel. "Unknown Fleet, this is War General Thexmore of the Vorthak Empire. You are interfering with a lawful military operation. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." The response came back immediately. Broadcast on all frequencies so every ship could hear it. "This is Admiral Kim of the Terran Fleet. You are committing genocide against a peaceful population. Withdraw your forces immediately and return to your territory, or we will stop you." Thexmore laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his bridge. "You have 57 ships. I have 200. Your mathematics are poor, Admiral." "Our mathematics are fine," came the reply. "You have 200 ships. We have 57 ships full of very angry humans. Withdraw now or learn the difference." Thexmore had never heard of humans, but he did not care. Numbers were numbers. He cut the communication channel and turned to his tactical officer. All ships, open fire on the unknown fleet. Destroy them quickly, then resume bombardment of the planet. The Vorthak fleet turned their weapons on the human ships. Energy beams and kinetic projectiles filled the space between the two fleets. It was enough firepower to level a continent. The human ships did not retreat. They did not even slow down. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the Vorthak fleet, their own weapons charging for battle. On the Terra's Wrath, Admiral Kim watched the enemy fire approach on her tactical display. The Vorthak were using standard galactic military doctrine: stand off at long range and pound the enemy with superior numbers. All ships, Admiral Kim broadcast to her fleet, commence attack pattern Delta. Show them what humans do to bullies. The human ships spread out and began evasive maneuvers that should have been impossible at their size and speed. They twisted and rolled through space like fighter craft instead of capital ships. Vorthak weapons that should have hit their targets passed harmlessly through empty space. Captain Min-Ho Lee smiled as his ship, the Retribution, dove under a barrage of enemy fire. His crew was pressed into their seats by acceleration forces that would have killed most alien species. But humans had evolved on a high-gravity world. They were built for this. Target their flagship, Min-Ho ordered. Let's introduce ourselves properly. The human fleet closed the distance rapidly, their weapons reaching optimal range. What happened next would shock the galaxy and change the course of galactic civilization forever. War General Thexmore watched the approaching human ships with growing unease. They moved like no military vessels he had ever seen. They flew like predators closing in for a kill. The emergency signal reached every human military base in known space. Within hours, ships began moving toward assembly points. This was not a normal deployment. This was the largest human fleet ever gathered for a single mission. Captain Min-Ho Lee stood on the bridge of his battlecruiser, the UES Retribution, watching other ships arrive at the staging area near Jupiter. The massive vessels appeared out of hyperspace one by one, their hulls dark and angular. Human ships did not look like the smooth curved vessels that other species built. They looked like weapons. Count? Min-Ho asked his tactical officer. 57 ships now, Captain, replied Lieutenant Haewon Choi. More coming every hour. Min-Ho nodded. The Retribution was one of Earth's newest battlecruisers, built for long-range combat. Her weapons could destroy a city from orbit, and her armor could withstand direct hits from nuclear missiles. But Min-Ho knew they were not just going to fight. They were going to save lives. On the command ship UES Terra's Wrath, Admiral So-Jin Kim met with her fleet commanders. The war room was crowded with the best officers Earth had trained. They looked at the tactical displays showing the route to Velthara. Intelligence update, Admiral Kim said. Commander Ji-Hai Park, the fleet intelligence officer, stood up. The Vorthak invasion fleet consists of approximately 200 ships. They use energy weapons and kinetic bombardment. Their ships are larger than ours, but slower. They rely on overwhelming firepower rather than tactics. What about the Veltharians? Asked Captain Dae-Young Nam of the UES Phoenix Rising. Peaceful species. No military to speak of. They have some defensive satellites, but nothing that can stop a real invasion. The Vorthak will probably start with orbital bombardment to break their spirit, then land troops to finish the job. Admiral Kim studied the star charts. Time to reach Velthara? 4 days if we push the engines hard, answered her navigator. The Vorthak fleet will arrive in 3 days. Then we push harder, Admiral Kim said. I want us there when they arrive. Captain Soo-Young Bae of the carrier UES Indomitable Spirit raised her hand. Admiral, what are the rules of engagement? Admiral Kim's face was hard. The Vorthak are committing genocide. There are no rules. We stop them by any means necessary. The room was quiet. Everyone understood what that meant. This would not be a limited conflict with careful targeting and minimal casualties. This would be total war. One more thing, Admiral Kim continued. This will be first contact with the Veltharians. They have never seen humans before. They don't know what we are or what we're capable of. Let's make a good impression. The fleet departed 6 hours later. 57 human warships jumped into hyperspace simultaneously. Their destination, a small planet most of them had never heard of before today. But that did not matter. Someone had asked for help and humans answered. On Velthara, Ambassador Kethvar watched the approaching Vorthak fleet through long-range sensors. The enemy ships had stopped just outside the star system and seemed to be organizing for attack. Kethvar counted them over and over, hoping he had made a mistake. 200 ships. More than enough to destroy his world 10 times over. Any response to our distress signal? He asked the communications operator. Nothing, Ambassador, she replied sadly. The signal reached several systems, but no one has answered. Kethvar was not surprised. Most galactic civilizations avoided conflict with the Vorthak. It was easier to stay quiet and hope the destroyers would pass by. No one wanted to make themselves a target. Keep broadcasting, Kethvar said. Someone might still hear us. But privately he had given up hope. The Vorthak would arrive tomorrow and Velthara would die. 2 billion souls would be lost and the galaxy would forget they had ever existed. He did not know that help was already coming. The human fleet traveled through hyperspace at dangerous speeds. Most species considered faster than light travel risky at the best of times. Humans pushed their ships harder than any sane race would attempt. But humans had learned to take risks that other species would never dare. Captain Youngjun Kim sat in the engine room of the UES Terra's Wrath, monitoring the hyperspace drive. The massive engines were running at 110% of rated capacity. The metal around him groaned and shook from the stress. How long can we maintain this speed? Asked his chief engineer. Long enough, Youngjun replied. The engines can take it. And if they can't? Youngjun smiled grimly. Then we'll fix them when we get there. This was the human way. Push everything to the limit and beyond. Take risks that seemed impossible. Survive through determination and refusing to give up. Other species called it reckless. Humans called it necessary. Admiral Kim stood in her private ready room looking at intelligence files about both the Vorthak and the Veltharians. The Vorthak were a typical predator species, strong, aggressive, and militaristic. They had evolved on a world with limited resources, so they learned to take what they needed from others. The Veltharians were the opposite. They came from a world with abundant food and gentle weather. They had never needed to fight for survival, so they never developed weapons or military tactics. They were artists and farmers and philosophers. It was an old story in the galaxy. The strong destroyed the weak and everyone else looked the other way. But humans were different. Earth was neither a paradise like Velthara, nor a simple harsh world like the Vorthak homeworld. Earth was something much worse. Earth was a death world. Admiral Kim pulled up the file on Earth's classification in galactic databases. The few alien species that knew about Earth rated it as Class 12 hazardous, unsuitable for life. The gravity was too strong. The weather was too violent. The atmosphere was poisonous to most species. The surface was constantly changed by earthquakes and volcanoes. Deadly radiation from the sun made the surface dangerous. And somehow humans had not just survived on this nightmare world. They had thrived. That made humans something new in the galaxy. They had the strength and aggression of a predator species, but also the intelligence and cooperation of a peaceful species. They could fight like the Vorthak, but they chose to protect others like the Veltharians wanted to be protected. A message came through on her private channel. It was from Captain Hyunwoo Park on the cargo ship Indomitable. Admiral, this is Captain Park. I'm 12 hours out from Velthara. The Vorthak fleet is beginning to move into attack formation. Request permission to make contact with the Veltharians before you arrive. Admiral Kim thought for a moment. Captain Park was flying an unarmed cargo ship into a war zone. He would be destroyed if the Vorthak noticed him. But someone needed to tell the Veltharians that help was coming. Permission granted, Captain, she replied. Try not to get yourself killed before we get there. I'll do my best. Admiral. The human fleet raced through hyperspace toward a world they had never seen, to save people they had never met. Because someone had asked for help. It was perhaps the most human thing they had ever done. The blue-green planet of Velthara spun slowly in the light of its twin suns. On the surface, billions of peaceful beings lived simple lives. They grew crops, raised families, and built beautiful cities that looked like flowers blooming across the land. The Veltharians had never known war. They had never needed to fight anyone. Ambassador Kethvar stood in the main communications center, his 6 arms shaking as he watched the screens. Dark shapes moved between the stars. Hundreds of them. The enemy ships looked like metal insects, sharp and cruel. They were coming fast. How long do we have? Kethvar asked the young operator beside him. Maybe 3 days, she whispered. The Vorthak fleet will reach us in 3 days. Kethvar closed his large, gentle eyes. The Vorthak were known across the galaxy as destroyers. They took planets and killed everyone on them. They did not ask for surrender. They did not take prisoners. They simply wiped out entire worlds and moved on to the next one. Send the emergency signal, HFY said. Send it on every frequency we know. Send it as far as our transmitters can reach. The young operator's fingers danced across the controls. What should I say, Ambassador? Tell them we are a peaceful world of over 2 billion souls. Tell them we have never hurt anyone. Tell them we are about to die and we need help. HFY's voice broke. Tell them, please, if anyone can hear this, please help us. The signal went out into space, traveling at the speed of light. It carried the voice of Ambassador HFY, speaking in the common galactic language that most civilized species understood. The message was simple and desperate. This is Velthara. We are under attack. The Vorthak Empire is coming to destroy our world. We have no weapons. We have no defenses. We are farmers and artists and teachers. We have children. Please, if anyone receives this message, please help us. We have maybe 72 hours before they arrive, please. The message traveled through the empty darkness between stars. It passed by dead worlds and empty space. It reached the edges of known galactic civilization and kept going, out into the unknown regions where few dared to travel. Far away, in a part of space that most galactic maps marked as dangerous or unexplored, a human ship picked up the signal. Captain Hyunwoo Park was drinking coffee in his small cabin when the communication alert sounded. He was a tall man with tired eyes and graying hair. He had been flying cargo runs on the edge of human space for 15 years. His ship, the UES Indomitable, was old but reliable. Captain, came the voice of his communications officer over the intercom. You need to hear this. Hyunwoo walked to the bridge and sat in his command chair. What is it, Juwon? Lieutenant Juwon Kim played the message. The desperate voice of Ambassador HFY filled the bridge. Hyunwoo listened without speaking. When it was over, he was quiet for a long moment. Play it again, he said. They listened to the message 3 more times. Hyunwoo stared at the star charts on his screen. Velthara was marked there, a small dot in space about 6 days away at maximum speed. Sir, said Lieutenant Kim. What should we do? Hyunwoo stood up and walked to the front of the bridge. He looked out at the stars through the thick windows. Somewhere out there, billions of innocent people were about to die. They had sent out a desperate cry for help, not knowing if anyone would hear them or care. Send a message to Earth Fleet Command, Hyunwoo said. Full priority. Tell them we have a code black humanitarian crisis. Include the entire Veltharian transmission. Yes, sir, Kim said, her fingers flying over the controls. Hyunwoo thought about the voice in the message. The fear was real. The desperation was real. These were not warriors or politicians playing games. These were ordinary people facing death. Also send a message to Captain Soo-jin on the Defender and Captain Young-ho on the Guardian. They're the closest human ships to our position. Tell them what we found. Should we change course for Velthara, Captain? Asked his navigator, Ensign Taemin. Hyunwoo was quiet for another moment. His ship was just a cargo vessel. It had some basic weapons for dealing with pirates, but nothing that could fight a real military fleet. If he went to Velthara, he would probably just get himself and his crew killed. But the voice in the message kept playing in his head. Please help us. We have children. Set course for Velthara, Hyunwoo said. Maximum speed. Sir? Lieutenant Kim said carefully. What can we do against an entire Vorthak fleet? Hyunwoo smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Maybe nothing. But we can try. And maybe Earth Fleet will send help. The Indomitable turned toward Velthara and jumped into hyperspace. Behind them, the emergency message raced toward Earth at faster than light speed, carried by quantum communication arrays. On Earth, in the underground command center beneath Luna Base, Admiral Soo-jin Kim received the message at Oro 300 hours. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and short black hair. She had been in the Earth Fleet for 25 years and had never seen a code black before. She read the Veltharian message twice, then called her senior staff. Within an hour, 12 of Earth's top military commanders were sitting around a table, listening to Ambassador HFY's desperate plea. How far is Velthara? Admiral Kim asked. 6 days at maximum fleet speed, answered Captain Woo Jin-han, her chief navigator. What do we know about the Vorthak? Commander Bora Young, head of alien intelligence, opened a file. They're a military empire. They've destroyed 17 civilizations in the last 50 years. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They show up, Destroy everything and move on. Admiral Kim stood up and walked to the large star map on the wall. Velthara was a tiny dot of light, so far away it seemed impossible to reach in time. How many ships do we have available for immediate deployment? She asked. 43 capital ships within 12 hours, answered Fleet Coordinator Min-Soo Lee. Maybe 60 if we pull ships from patrol duty. Do it, Admiral Kim said. Pull everything. This is exactly why we built this fleet. The room was quiet. Everyone knew what she meant. Humans had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. In that time, they had learned that the galaxy was full of peaceful species like the Veltharians and predator species like the Vorthak. Earth had built its fleet to protect Earth, but also to help others who could not protect themselves. Admiral, said Commander Jung, we don't know anything about these Veltharians. They might not even be worth saving. Admiral Kim turned around, her eyes cold. They asked for help. That's enough. She looked around the table at her officers. Prepare the fleet. We leave in 6 hours. And send a message to Captain Park on the Indomitable. Tell him help is coming.